well-known newspapers, the New York Times and the Washington Post, only yesterday published an article stating that the state of Qatar has provided Stinger US anti-aircraft missiles to the opposition. How can we otherwise interpret that when 2 weeks ago opposition groups had threatened to bring down civilian aircraft over Syria or to attack diplomatic missions? Yesterday and today, UNDOF personnel have been attacked. Would it not be sensible to reach the conclusion here that there are some on the ground and outside Syria that see no interest in the success of a comprehensive national dialogue? Mr. President, it pains us that hundreds of thousands of our people have become refugees. It pains us deeply when Syria was the biggest per capita host of refugees in the world before the crisis. Refugees made up fully 12% of the people living in Syria. Palestinians, Iraqis, Lebanese and others. And now the Syrian government has repeatedly stated that we want those refugees to be able to go back to their homes and to their farms. Indeed, some do not want to return. That is true. However, many others do want to come home. There are some preventing them from doing so. Furthermore, there are some who wish to exaggerate the numbers of Syrian refugees. Some information has reached us that anybody crossing Syrian borders is registered as a refugee. This is not proper. There are many Syrians moving back and forth from neighboring countries who are not refugees. They travel to neighboring countries for various reasons and then return, many of them in their private vehicles. Nevertheless, they are registered as refugees. Why? For the numbers of refugees to continuously escalate in order to bring political pressure to bear on the Syrian government and humanitarian pressure to bear on the refugees themselves. Mr. President, this international community must admit that there is international terrorism obtaining in Syria, supported by states. States that claim to want to protect human rights in Syria, but states who do not hesitate to condemn a poet to a life sentence merely because he had the temerity to write a poem condemning the emir of his country. This is the contradiction that faces us these days. Mr. President, yes, there is a crisis in Syria. It is a political crisis. This political crisis must find a political solution, not a terrorist solution, not an armed solution, not a solution brought to bear through foreign intervention in Syrian affairs. Mr. Brahimi has spoken of need for change in Syria. The Syrian people, yes, do support such a change. However, such a change must be commensurate to the aspirations and hopes of the Syrian people themselves, and not the result of foreign agendas that have no good intentions whatsoever. We speak in this General Assembly hall where the Charter of the United Nations prevails. It is for that reason we believe that sovereignty of member states, the principle of non-interference in internal affairs, respect for international law, opposing terrorism, refraining from armed opposition in any country, these are basic tenets in this charter. From the very beginning of the crisis and to date, my government has directed 250 letters to the Secretary General, to the President of the General Assembly, to member states, to the members of the Security Council, to the chair of the committee, the CTC, all letters that are perfectly clear, that explain to all what is going on the ground in my country. And although we have sent 3 letters containing the names of non-Syrian terrorists, some who are members of Al-Qaeda, admitted members of Al-Qaeda, we are yet to obtain a response from those who claim to want to combat terrorism in this international organization. I leave all this in your hands, Mr. President, and once again, I thank you for calling on Mr. Brahimi to brief the General Assembly on his endeavors following his mission to capitals in and outside the region. I thank you, sir.